Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting back against today's organized crime syndicates. I'm your host, Marty Carpenter, and today on the show we have John Mattis. He's the founder of Blacklight Strategy. He's back on the show, a second-time guest. He's going to discuss current trends in organized retail crime with a special focus on the technology, and we're going to talk about trends that we should see over the next year to 2 years. Great conversation. That's coming up right after this word from our sponsor. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. John Mattis is the founder of Blacklight Strategy, where he leverages over 30 years of insider expertise to translate technology into retail success. Now, John splits his focus between mapping competitive intelligence for solution providers and advising on fraud, organized retail crime, and retail security. John, thanks so much for being back on the show. Friend of the pod officially, if you've been back here a second time. You were here back in June of 2024. We would encourage all of our listeners and viewers to go back and take a look at that episode. I'm wondering, though, what changes have you observed in organized retail crime and the landscape around ORC since you were last here, just over a year ago?
Yeah, great question. So I think that when you look back at our conversation last June, I was very critical of law and order, the decriminalization process in the United States. And you're starting to see some of that turn around, which is super great news for retailers and ORC teams, as well as general loss in the industry. So we're starting to see that come around. California and some of the other states are coming around, but, there's still a lot of work to be done. When you look at Illinois, New York, there's still big opportunity there. And there's still big opportunity in some of the other states. But for the most part, I could see that is probably one of the biggest things that you're seeing transpire, as well as the NRF pushing national legislation on organized retail crime.
If you could have looked forward and said, hey, by September of 2025, you're going to have states that have reversed course on some of the direction they had taken that had exacerbated or even caused the problem we were seeing with ORC, you'd probably be pretty happy to be where we are today and say that's a lot of progress that we've made in a year by fixing something so fundamentally important.
That's a tremendous amount of progress. I really didn't have a lot of confidence that was going to happen. The fact that it's happening at all is a big deal.
So as we're seeing states and other communities oversee or overhaul their retail theft laws, and we're seeing some of them, as I mentioned, rolling back previous decriminalization efforts. How are these legislative changes impacting the organized retail crime field in 2025? How are they actually making a difference?
I think it's still new to be for it to be getting a lot of traction. I do hear some investigations that normally would have been stalled for quite some time. We're able to get some arrests and some pending prosecutions on. But I think there's still time to be had here. You got to remember that, ORC is a global issue, national issue. So you still have multi-state issues going on. If you're not part of the ORC coalition, where you sort of have reciprocity for crimes committed in other states, there's problems there. But I think that you're still waiting for more traction on this topic and for more states to pick up on it. There's a lot of pushback. I mean, you see it in the news. You see it. Our ORC teams feel it. They see it out there and in stores, as well as their relationships with law enforcement. There's a big amount of frustration on this topic. So, no one wants this more than the ORC community and the law enforcement community. So I still think it's a wait and see.
There's no bigger buzzword right now than AI. And with AI-powered surveillance and predictive analytics becoming more mainstream in retail security, what implementations are you seeing that actually deliver some type of return on that investment?
Yeah, so the two big things here. One is AI and video analytics, the ability to be able to use AI machine learning to help you to identify theft activity, help you to easily go back, reframe theft activity that was caught on video. I think that is a big thing, and it continues to evolve. It's almost like it evolves month by month, but that's a huge opportunity, and it continues to grow. The other piece of AI, which is getting even more traction and has been more steadfast in the years that it's been out there, is is on the digital fraud side. So, and I said this last time that we met, there is a big crossover between what happens in stores and what happens online. If you think about an ORC operator today that's running a business, running their organized crime business, they're in the business of making money, not losing it. So, one of the hard parts in a physical theft is how do you turn that merchandise into cash? So most of the time you're selling it, reselling it under its actual value. So you're probably getting, 40, 50 cents on the dollar. Your best bet is to be able to get 100 cents on the dollar. So you're starting to see more and more AI, social engineering on the digital fraud side, using a lot of advanced AI techniques, advanced video, advanced facial swaps, being able to create social engineering events that are, valid stories in order to break into accounts. So you're seeing AI being used across the board, but I'm happy to see what's going on from a physical theft perspective with stores and video analytics and some of the analytics that is being used for threat intelligence, as well as on the digital side.
You probably saw that the Retail Industry Leaders Association recently expanded its information sharing platform. How effective are these types of collaborative efforts becoming, and what barriers still exist between retailers in combating organized retail crime?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So the big issue here is there needs to be one platform, not multiple platforms. Unless you're going to re-enter the information multiple times, unless you have one standard platform that everybody's using, you're only get a piece of the information. So I applaud RELA for being able to try to create some type of networking forum. The same exists on the NRF side. The same exists, when you're looking at the regional organized retail crime consortiums that are out there. I think there's 47 or 48 of them out there that are communicating. And then Aura, which is looking at putting their threat intelligence and some of the automated reporting into some of the big ORC consortiums, and hopefully that'll take off. But there really needs to be one, not multiple. So that's really the big deal. Second thing is that this is getting some traction. So, so I keep my foot on the physical side and the digital side. So when I talk from both lenses. So one of the things that's been missing on the digital side has been the sharing of fraud and theft and scam information, threat intelligence on the digital side, because, you have a lot of banks that are held to, bank privacy laws, things like that. The Treasury Department under administration orders is in the middle of trying to put together, or they're really putting it on an RFI really, to be able to create some type of fraud intelligence sharing that has cross-functional usage, such as organized retail crime. Once that takes off, you're going to start to see more and more, you probably double the size of that intelligence sharing community, but it really needs to still be on one platform. So whatever it is, whether there's integrations out there where, you report it once and it goes everywhere, which is really the best case scenario, that is really where you need to be in regards to threat intelligence sharing. So, and I'm sorry, you had a second part to that question?
No, I think that pretty much covered. Okay. I guess I was asking how effective are these efforts, and then what are the barriers that are still existing between retailers in combating ORC?
Yeah, the number one tool for any ORC investigator in any retailer is intelligence sharing. If you think that your ORC problems are a solitary event that's only impacting your company, that's a naive way of thinking. It's really across the board. All retailers share the same customer in these ORC criminals. So really being able to share information, whether it's through orcas, whether it's through individual relationships, LinkedIn, whether it's RELA or NRF information sharing, or some of the others, it's all about information sharing, because that's the way to get information out. And then secondly will be whatever tooling that is available to you, whether it's on the physical side or the digital side. But really networking is the number one tool that any ORC investigator has, and it has been since the beginning.
We're hearing more about sophisticated digital components to physical theft, from encrypted communication to online fencing operations. How is this digital physical convergence changing the game?
Yeah, it's changing the game from a couple of different perspectives. So number one is on the ability for AI to be able to create digital type attacks, digital scripts that'll be able to automatically be able to sweep the dark net for stolen identities, high value net worth individuals, because they have the highest credit lines. Those are the ones you want to go after. So the ability to use that for scraping information off the dark web to be able to get personal identifiable information, PII. The second thing is used for social engineering, being able to infiltrate accounts, account takeovers, really defrauding so much the customer service, the human aspect, agentic AI. Those are all things that are really advancing, and it really has been just over the last 12 months. I mean, agentic AI, I remember hearing it last year, and now all of a sudden it's the overall buzzword. So that's a big one. And then the other piece of it is just the tech-savvy ORC operators that are out there that know they're going to get much more bang for their buck if they're able to commit their crimes in a digital way versus a physical way, with practically no vulnerability to arrest or apprehension or even identification because they're using a digital means. So that's really where the big opportunity is. And the crossover between physical and digital, in two respects: retailer, looking at what goes on digitally and what goes on in stores. Technically, that's two different views for most all retailers. Two different views. Now they may be able to. They work together in teams, but it's definitely your investigators are looking at what goes on in stores, and then your fraud investigators are looking at what goes online. So there's a convergence there. The other piece of it is the solution provider community. Typically, you had your physical security solution providers on one side, you had your digital solution providers on the other side. Based on the fact with omni-channel that ORC operators are infiltrating both channels simultaneously, they're being able to capitalize on vulnerabilities in those gaps. You're starting to see the solution providers start to team up to be able to fight the ORC threat that's out there. So you're seeing a real dynamic evolution in the industry. And it's really where you're seeing the digital and the physical start to merge together because they know that is the only way to be able to really get some traction on organized retail crime.
From your unique position advising both retailers and solution providers, what gaps do you see in the current market that aren't being adequately addressed?
Yeah, it goes back to what I just said. You still have a lot of retailers out there, and when I say a lot, I'm saying most, that are looking at what goes on in stores and digital separately. So they're not merging those channels together and then using AI and machine learning to say, here is what the threat and vulnerability is to us on all of our selling and return transactions combined, whether it happens in store or online. So they're looking at it separately. There are a handful that are looking at it in a combined way, and they're really ahead of the curve. So that's one piece of it. And then the second piece is the overall industry. When you look at the definition of organized retail crime, it's old. It needs to be updated. It still refers to physical theft in stores and fencing merchandise online. That's old. That still happens, but that definition is old. I've tried to motivate the industry to change the terminology here, change the overall definition, making it much more simple for everyone to understand, which is any criminal conspiratorial attack against the retail establishment, both digitally and physically, from organized groups. So that really covers the gamut. It covers in-store, it covers supply chain, it covers digital, it covers returns in stores, returns online, fraud, identity theft, all of those things, marketplace manipulation. It handles all of those different things. So that's the other piece that I see that is falling behind, but really needs to catch up.
All right, John, I'm going to get you out of here on this one. Let's talk about emerging trends or technologies that retailers should be preparing for in the next year to 2 years to stay ahead of evolving ORC tactics. What would you say those emerging trends or technologies are?
So the big thing here is, I've been a big proponent of this and pushing this big time in both communities, the in-store as well as the online communities. and that's, getting past the retail defense paradigm. The retail defense paradigm is really where retailers are constantly on the lookout, constantly in the defense. They're able to gap a hole, and another one pops up. It's like whac-a-mole. It's the constant fight of always being one step behind the bad guy. So one of the things that I keep talking about is where the evolution of retail is, and that's in unified commerce and unified loss orchestration, which is simply when you combine both the inline and digital channels, use AI and machine learning to be able to identify what's going on, things that you never saw before but you knew was happening, and really getting answers to questions you maybe didn't even know to ask. That's all going to be a component of unified data, unified systems, unified teams behind the scenes. And then once you do that, then you're going to start to see evolution of the product where you're going to enrich that data in order to be able to make sure that there's a high level of precision, high level of accuracy in what you're looking at. So being able to fold in other types of information that a retailer may have, whether it's marketing information, HR information, supply, fulfillment needs, merchandise supply in stores, all of those things will help you in being able to identify and be able to make better decisions for the customer. The big deal there is it's going to help organized retail crime, fraud investigators, internal theft investigators to be able to connect the dots where it used to be highly labor intensive, where you have to be able to pull video, you have to pull fraud, you have to be able to pull transactional information, pull supply levels, pull open source intelligence in order to be able to make decisions, video, things like that in order to build your case. When we know the technology is out there for a lot of that to be done automatically. So, when you look at that, you look at automated root cause analysis. Those are the types of things that you're going to start to see more and more of, probably in the next 12 months. There's a couple of retailers and a couple of solution providers that have their foot in the arena, not fully in, but once you see it, it's going to be the next big thing, because it's sorely behind and the technology is readily available for retail teams to take advantage of.
John Mattis, founder of Blacklight Strategy and now two-time guest on the Retail's Most Wanted pod. Thanks so much for all the thought and work you put into fighting back against organized retail crime, and thanks again for joining us today. All right, that's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks, as always, to our presenting sponsor, LVT. And don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button so you can catch each new episode. We drop one every 2 weeks. You can also find us on X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Thanks for being with us, everyone. And as always, keep up the good fight.